Yet another day of just massive, massive revelation of the stupid fool circus that I continue to try to draw your attention to so that you can somehow part the fucking Red Sea of your mind, the clouds of your mind, to tap into what Patrick Lovell is actually telling you, because I am the only guy that has the full scope truth that affects every single person in the United States, and none of you are aware of how the system works. Let me start with Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow last night does what Rachel Maddow does as the director of communications for the Democratic Party, a Democratic Party that has been commingled with the corruption of Wall Street going back decades. And you might actually say that they're the ones who fostered it through the Clinton presidency, through what we call deregulation, desupervision, and decriminalization. But Rachel Maddow last night goes on this tirade once a week. Rachel Maddow, who gets paid $30 million a year to cherry pick the truth that's going to fit a specific designated audience that can pull in 3 rating share every single night, that's basically going to give MSNBC its competition in the ratings wars and the downward spiral, to make sure that you think one part of the problem is the problem, but it's not the whole problem, because she's covering up for the rest of the problem, of which she either knows about it or is a complete fucking useful idiot. And I'm not quite sure to this day what it is, because I think Rachel Maddow has all of the resources necessary to do what it is that I'm telling you, but chooses not to. So here's an example. Last night she goes absolutely apeshit over the revelations that former Attorney General during the Trump presidency, who's now since gone into the January 6th hearings and basically said Trump is full of shit. But in this particular case, Trump, or I should say Barr, rode into the presidency because he's known going back 4 decades for having the legal precedent that the president is above the law while he's in office. That's why he was there. So Rachel Maddow has this segment last night where she's going nuts about this idea that Barr lied to cover up everything that he knew during the impeachment hearings because he wasn't going to hold President Trump accountable no matter what. Jeez, what a fucking surprise, Rachel. You get paid $30 million a year to be that fucking smart? My God, what a joke. Of course that was the whole purpose why William Barr was there. But let's actually put that into context to what it is that I've been telling you. So former Attorney General Eric Holder, who came out of Covington and Burling before he became AG during the Obama presidency, was put in charge to basically deal with what took place during the 2008 financial crisis and its aftermath, that basically was engineered, puppeteered, racketeered by Wall Street. So what did Eric Holder do? Did he bring prosecutions based on everything that I show you in the con at www.thecon.tv, which is the largest criminal enterprise and cover-up in the history of the world? Of course not. The DOJ basically went like this, pulled out the gigantic broom and swept it all under the rug. Why? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but might it be that Eric Holder went back to his cushy office at Covington and Burling, the actual law firm who was also responsible for robo-signing because of what we call MERS? Okay, well, yeah, maybe. In fact, I heard that he actually got paid $30 million a year after the fact. That might be a nice incentive, or I should say payoff, for doing what he had to do as the AG of the United States to cover up the largest criminal conspiracy and cover-up in history that basically buried at least 50 million Americans based on this insane setup in this racketeering enterprise that ultimately led the Federal Reserve Act 13.3 to provide trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars illegally to the financial system that buried everybody. And I'm not just talking about homeowners. I'm talking about municipalities. I'm talking about pensioners. I'm talking about people all around the world that Rachel Maddow didn't have outrage about, because Rachel Maddow's job is to make sure that you don't understand that. Now, does that mean that I'm a Republican, a conservative, somebody who is ideologically different than Rachel Maddow? No. No, we believe in liberty and justice for all and the integrity of the system, and nobody ends above the law. But Rachel Maddow is a con artist, just like Alex Jones, just like Tucker Carlson, just like Anderson Cooper. They're all full of fucking shit. And I want to take that into the next realm of what might shock people. Okay? So how about this? Yesterday, I see none other than Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner, Elizabeth Warren, and a whole host, and I didn't see AOC, interestingly enough. Maybe I missed the tweet, but they were all up in arms about the Biden presidency because of what Larry Summers is talking about. I think forgiving $10,000 in student loan debt versus what is, most people are underwater decades later of their loan debt because they came out of a for-profit university system that, basically plugged people into a failing economy because Wall Street, through the financialization and the rot of globalization, through all of the things that became, NAFTA and everything else, we basically destroyed the golden goose in the middle class. And so a lot of people come out with education, unless they're software tech and engineer or brain surgeon or whatever else, and they find themselves in service jobs. After what, a $50,000, $70,000 education, and they're making minimum wage, and then they lose their houses and they can't afford stuff, and the next thing you know, they're in debt up to their eyeballs. And so here comes this thing on student debt forgiveness, and Nina Turner is talking about, well, the fact that they didn't do more is based on systemic racism. Meanwhile, I can tell you personally that Nina Turner doesn't have a fucking clue of what systemic racism actually is. Now, here's something absolutely incredible. Nina Turner, when she was running for Congress, she literally sat in the seat of Addie Polk, a woman who we build the entire con around, a woman who had spent decades and decades at the Antioch Baptist Church in Akron, Ohio, because she was a woman of God and a woman who tried to keep her business together, who got set up in what was known as straw buying, where they ripped her house from her in an illegal foreclosure, where she ended up having to commit suicide and ultimately, instead of go homeless at the age of 91. Nina Turner sits down in her chair, Reverend Harrison, Pastor Harrison at the Antioch Baptist Church, tries to educate Nina Turner on systemic predation, which is revealed in the con based on Addie Polk's story. Does Nina Turner bother to engage it? No. She doesn't have a fucking clue. She's too important. She's running for Congress. She's trying to be something to somebody without actually knowing what she's talking about. And so here she is, on the heels. I think she's now a personality on the Young Turks. And I don't watch the Young Turks anymore because the Young Turks is full of shit also. And she's talking about systemic, racism in lending. And she doesn't fucking have an idea of how it actually works. Okay, that's one part of the puzzle. But what about Bernie Sanders? Everybody's favorite grandpa who called out the system, who's somebody we can trust, because Bernie is a good guy. And Bernie did drop a lot of truth bombs. But the bottom line with Bernie, going back to 2016 and onward, is that Bernie talks about corruption in platitudes. He's vague. And this is what's insane about that. So Bernie Sanders chimed in on the whole student loan default or forgiveness and all that kind of stuff yesterday, and he once again talks about, well, we bailed out Wall Street corruption. Back in the 2016 presidential election, Bernie Sanders said in front of a national audience when he was debating Hillary Clinton, Wall Street's business model is fraud. But A, nobody asked him a follow-up question to qualify what he said and what he meant. And then Bernie dropped it. He never went further than that. Even though I know that Bernie had insight to as much stuff as I do. More so, as you would imagine. In fact, Bernie created the audit of the Fed with, I think, Rand Paul, right? Which I believe led to the Levy study, which revealed the $29 trillion that I tell you about. But does Bernie ever talk about the $29 trillion and what it was actually used for and how? That's Federal Reserve Act 13.3, that the Federal Reserve did an end round with the Treasury to basically bail out this monstrous criminal racket that involved systemic racism and predation that, Nina Turner has no idea about. And Bernie's not going to give you any details about. Why? And while I'm on it, so for example, yesterday I see this headline by David Sirota's The Lever. And they're talking about this guy who's this dark money force that basically, shadow funds influence for conservative slash, whatever you want to call, basically dark money to influence SCOTUS. As if this is a thing. Like, oh my God, can you believe it? What do you think the Koch brothers have been doing for fucking decades? I mean, this goes back to, and I said it the other day, I can't even think of the whole deal in the 50s. It'll come back to me. But dark money's been around for decades and decades and decades. And it just got put on overdrive after Citizens United, and the Koch brothers have become insane masters of the backdoor corruption. So you put it all together, and it's like, do you see the pattern? Everybody that we depend on to get the truth, those that are supposedly in positions of power and credibility that we're listening to, don't even know what the fuck actually is going on. Nor do they know the details. Nor do they understand how to be able to convey it in a way that you, the people, can pull your head out of where the sun doesn't shine to understand that you live in a completely corrupt country. Democracy isn't at stake. It got lost a long time ago. The integrity of law is bullshit because banks and financial apparatuses, those that are above, at a certain threshold above the line, they're unaccountable. DOJ is not going to go after them. Eric Holder didn't bring any of this stuff down, like I said to you, during the Obama presidency. And I'll put it to you this way. Eric Holder winds up back at Covington and Burling, makes millions upon millions of dollars. I already made $30 million going back to Covington and Burling. Hey, that's a pretty payoff. What about President Obama? Obama is now worth north of $140 million based on book sales and whatever his deal is with Netflix and everything. Is that a bit of a payola? Or is it just because we all trust Obama? Obama, Mr. Change We Can Believe In, came in and let the system get away with it, which created Trump. Does that make Trump innocent? Does that make Trump, under the thumb of corruption, and he's being, unfairly targeted in the way that he and all of his, minions like to portray? No. Donald Trump is the perfect expression for what it is that we are, because he is us. Because he is like, fuck this shit. Lie, deny, switch the blame, and implicate. Get away with as much as you can. And if we find out that he sold nuclear secrets to Saudi to be able to bail out his son-in-law at 666 Park Avenue, would you be surprised? I wouldn't. The only thing that has value and currency in our society today are lies, and the liars who tell them. It's the emperor's new clothes. I am trying to elevate truth and justice and the American dream above all else, because that's who Patrick Lovell is. That's who I've always been. That's who I will always be. We're marching on Washington on 11/1/22. I'm calling on millions upon millions of people from all sides of the equation. If you believe that your main beef is with systemic racism in prisons, you got to come join us because it's all about corruption. If you want a new world paradigm based on energy that we can actually turn over the fossil fuel dependence, that's all based on corruption. You want to join us. You want better healthcare. You want better education. You want better opportunity so that a rising tide raises all ships. You got to demand accountability. I'm telling you, the entire system is corrupt. It's just Game of Thrones. The new robber barons are battling control with the new Confederacy, because if you get the White House and Congress, which is the Iron Throne, you get the Iron Bank, which is the Federal Reserve. That's all this is. And what I'm trying to stimulate is a tidal wave of a We the People tidal wave to purge corruption. Join us. Onwards and upwards.